Challenge. Is everybody back? Challenge. That is great. Now let's move on to our next idea. Bachcho, is my voice clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I hope there's no distortion. Now, okay, the next idea that we will talk about today is biodiversity. So basically, considering the same example that I have given, you know, as I said, community one has large biodiversity and community two has small biodiversity. Species diversity, and this is an extension, by the way, of this third point, okay? So species diversity can be measured. Species diversity can be measured using the following, which is known as Simpson's index of biodiversity. Okay, let's look at an example, and then quickly we will look at. पहले मैं आपको एक example देता हूँ, a very simple example. Then we will move on to one of the past papers and see how the questions they are for this particular topic. Okay, now. Achha, there's one thing that I should have mentioned. Yes, I think let me add that point here. Simpsons biodiversity pe aate hain. So there, you need to know this point that ecosystems with high biodiversity tend to be more stable. Ecosystems with high biodiversity are more stable. Stable का क्या मतलब है? What do I mean by stable? Stability in terms of their ability to survive harsh conditions, for example, predation, for example, harsh temperature conditions, water scarcity, and so on and so forth. And the opposite is also true, that then the ones which have low biodiversity are less stable, okay? So, and vice versa, that's obviously understood. ये एक बहुत important point है. We need to understand this, okay? Now, coming back to the formula, so this there's an equation. By the way, this is not a statistical test like we did chi-squared test or t-test. It's just a formula that is basically going to tell us in quantitative terms which community is more diverse and which is less diverse, okay? So the formula is, and by the way, this index of diversity is a measure of diversity, and it takes the species richness and the abundance or evenness. मैंने evenness के साथ abundance का word नहीं लिखा. I think I should slash that. It's evenness या abundance. It's the same thing, okay? Abundant, यानी कि look at the word, how abundant a particular species is. Okay, so the formula is the following. You don't need to remember this formula. It will always be given. Lekin we need to understand what this formula is. So let me write that down for you, and then I will explain what the individual things of this formula they work. But a बहुत simple example, we will do the full working of how the formula works. Now, D, that's the symbol of Simpson's index of diversity, equals to 1 minus summation of small n over large n whole squared. Okay, where n, capital N, is representative of the total number of total number of individuals of all species, total number of individuals of all species. That's the key word here. We are not talking about just one species, we're talking about all species. That's capital N. That's very important. Okay. Small n, whereas small n is the total number of individuals of a particular species. Total number of individuals of a particular species. Okay. Yani ke we're only talking about one species. So that's why capital N is, we're using capital N that represents all of the number of individuals. ठीक हो गया जी? All right. So what are we? And of course, summation ka sign aap sabko pata hai, it means sum of all of them, and then squared. Of course, I don't need to go into that detail. So I'm going to give you a very simple example, and then we will solve through this, and then we will quickly go on to one of the past papers. Okay, so question is, let's use the same example. Let's calculate the Simpson's index of biodiversity of both these communities, community one and community two, in the example that we give. So let me write that question. Calculate Simpson's index, capital D, of biodiversity for both communities, in our example. Okay, that's community one and two. Okay, since हमने वो example की है, so it's appropriate that we do. So let's start off with community one first. Okay, so that's our answer. So for community one. All right. Now, the first step is that you always calculate. वैसे एग्जाम के अंदर आपको इतना ये सारा प्रोसीजर नहीं करना पड़ेगा. You won't have to do the entire procedure in the exam. But again, since it's the first time, it's good that we go through all of this. Now, if I go back to the table, I can see that capital N for community one. So we're just considering community one. The capital N is the total number of all species. So that's 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, and that is 50. Okay. So that is 50. So capital N, we can say is 50. And then N, हमें पता है for all species was 10. All of them were 10 in number. Okay, so that's 10. Okay, so therefore, for each species, N over N equals to 10 over 50 for each species. This is for each species. अगर ये different होते numbers, तो फिर हम हर species के लिए we would have written it differently. But since it's the same for everything, so that's basically what small n over capital N would look like. That's step number one. Okay, let me label this as step number one. Now, step number two is calculate the squares of N over N. I'm breaking this down into baby steps just for you to understand, and I'm writing it in words that what you have to do. So calculate the squares of N over N and sum these values. Why do sum these values? Because that's what the formula says. So it should look something like the following. Summation N over capital N whole squared, which would mean the following: 10 over 50 whole squared, that's for species A, plus 10 over 50 whole squared, that's for species B, 10 over 50. मैं सबको add क्यों कर रहा हूँ? Because of this summation sign, okay? Plus 10 over 50 squared, that's for D, and plus 10 over 50 for E. So if you do the maths, 0.2 squared plus 0.2 squared plus 0.2 squared plus 0.2 squared plus 0.2 squared. And then again, if you do the maths, you have eventually the answer is 0.20. Okay, so that is, and then step three, finally, if you look at the formula was क्या था formula? 1 minus summation. So we've calculated all of this stuff. So what the next step number 3, what we need to do is we need to subtract so this value from 1. This value from 1. So 1 minus 0.2. Oh, I'm sorry. Equal to like दिया should have been 1 minus. So 1 minus 0.20 is going to give us D, and that is eventually 0.80. So D for community 1 is 0.80. So that's the quantitative form of 0.10. Now the question is, what does this mean? देखें, याद रखें, let me go back here. So when we're talking about Simpson's index of biodiversity, the answer will range from 0, sorry, not 1 to 0, 0 to 1. The answer will be ranging from 0 to 1. The closer the value to 1, closer the value to 1, higher the biodiversity. Okay? And if the value is closer to 0, then of course, low biodiversity. So closer the value of D to 0, 0 let me write it down in words. So closer the value of D to 0 means less biodiversity. Okay, so that's a very important thing that I mentioned. So 0.80, it means that this value is close to 1. This value is close to 1, which means that community 1 has high biodiversity. So we can clearly see how we have used this formula to quantify and tell that this has high biodiversity. And if you repeat the same steps for community 2, तो उसको मैं जल्दी से जरा आपके लिए कर दूं, and let's see what the formula, sorry, the value it sums up to. So again, summation n over n whole squared, and that will be 1 over 50 whole squared. That's for community. That's for, let's go back to the table. So you can clearly see for A, B, C, and D, all of these species had only one individual and E had 46 of them. So the formula should look something like the following. 1 over 50 plus 1 over 50 plus 1 over 50 plus 1 over 50 plus 46 over 50. And of course, you square all of them. Okay. And then eventually, iska jo answer aayega, that is 0.848. And then you minus this with 1. 1 minus 0.848 gives us 0.152. So the value of D for community 2 is 0.152. How do we explain this? Since this value is closer to 0, therefore less biodiversity. ठीक है जी? बच्चों, does that make sense? Saad, Khadija, and Zainab. Easy है कि मुश्किल है? ठीक है ना? It's very easy. So I mean, but inshallah, the questions in the exam will, or trust me, will be way easier than this question. So let me quickly insert a single question. I think it's from one of the very recent papers. Topical questions, biodiversity, Simpson's index of biodiversity. Okay. चलें जी, इसको जरा मैं इसके साइज के हिसाब से बड़ा करता हूँ. That's the alignment. Okay. So okay. And then the following. Come on. Okay. And then finally, key ko to chale hum baad mein drag kar lenge. That's the key. Okay. Let's quickly look at this question before we end. Oh, by the way, this is from May, June 2020. Okay. Question number 8, part B. Sampling is used to find out the variety of species in an ecosystem and the size of population of each species. I'm reading the statement again, listen carefully. Sampling is used to find out the variety of species, which we've talked about biodiversity, in an ecosystem and the size of the population of each species. Okay? Size is telling us something about the number of individuals, right? ये जिस तरह यहाँ पे आपको देखें टेबल पे नजर आ रहा है और उसने small n लेबल भी किया हुआ है इसको. Okay, a study was carried out to investigate the biodiversity of two fields, A and B. Field A had not been used for growing crops for 10 years. Okay, field A we didn't grow crops for 10 years. Field B had been used for growing crops until 1 year before the study. Random sampling was carried out. ये random sampling क्या है? ये inshallah we will discuss in our next class tomorrow. Table 8.1 shows इसका question का A part आप देखें उसके बाद direct B शुरू हो गया because A was about random sampling and since we haven't done that, so I haven't included that. So part B says table 8.1 shows the results of sampling of field A. So you can see यहाँ पे उन्होंने different species के नाम लिखे हुए हैं. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different species that he's talking about. So what is the species richness in this case? जी species richness क्या है बच्चों?
7 है.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. ना बच्चे 8 है. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. ये जरूर खतीजा होंगी. खतीजा आप थी? कि ज़ैनब आप थी? ये खतीजा थी.
जी सर.
Honored Khadija, thank you. 7. Okay. Now let's and then look at the number of individuals. They're different. And this is the total number, which is represented by capital N. Okay, now Simpson आपको formula दिया होगा बच्चों उन्होंने, so you don't need to worry about that. Simpson's index, लेकिन of course एक दो दफा it's good that you write this down so that you know which thing is representing which thing. It says Simpson's index of diversity is a value of species diversity in an area. Okay, the formula for this is following summation. He has told all of what a thing is representative of. Complete table 8.2 for Primula viris. Okay, so simple calculation करनी है. N ये है और capital N की value was, what was the value for capital N? 114. Okay, so you have to simply do the maths. 13 को 114 से किया तो 0.11 आया. Then 15 को 114 से किया, so this you will divide 26 by 114. And what's the answer that you get quickly? Can you tell me? बच्चों जरा कैलकुलेटर मार लें जल्दी से, मुझे बता दें प्लीज. 26 divided by 114 is 0.228 या 0.223 राउंड ऑफ करें. लेट्स सी उसने राउंड ऑफ किया.
0.22.
0.23 उसके राउंड ऑफ नहीं, आपने राउंड ऑफ करना ना क्योंकि 2 डेसिमल प्लेस पे देना है, बाकी सारे 2 डेसिमल प्लेसेस पे. एंड देन होल स्क्वायर्ड, इसकी वैल्यू सिंपली कैलकुलेट कर लें. इट विल बी 0.05. बच्चों एक सेकंड होल्ड करें. हाँ जी. नहीं 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 आप खा दो सारे बोलो, नो प्रॉब्लम. ओके, एंड देन 0.05 is for this. Of course, this is simple basic maths, no rocket science. 0.05. ठीक है. अच्छा जी, अब ये सारा डेटा यूज करके आपने फॉर्मूलाज में वैल्यू पुट करनी है, सबको सम करना है और फिर फाइनली आपने डी की वैल्यू कैलकुलेट कर लेनी. सेइंग शो योर वर्किंग एंड राइट योर आंसर टू 2 decimal places. Okay, and then it says in part 3 the value of D for field B was 0.45. He is talking about which field? He is talking about field A, जिसकी आपने which you have to calculate the D for. That's for A. ये आप कैलकुलेट करेंगे. B की उसने दे दिया और फिर वो कह रहा है comment on values of D for both fields. I'm leaving these 2 parts for you. Calculate करें, आंसर निकालें और फिर देखें which one is closer to 1, which one is closer to 0, and then you know the rule, and then that's how you're supposed to send it. Comment on this. Okay, ठीक है जी. So that's basically all about biodiversity. और आज हमने index, Simpson's index of biodiversity भी देख लिया. Inshallah tomorrow we will continue with the sampling methods. ओके ठहरी जी, मेरा क्लास नोट्स मैंने आपको ना पिछले लेसन की भी टॉपिक की भी क्लास नोट्स नहीं भेजे हुए. सो इंशाल्लाह आई विल डू दैट टुडे. सो दिस इज बायोडाइवर्सिटी एंड and index and D. I'm simply writing D. So we understand that Simpson in biodiversity. आज है जी 1st of December. And today is Tuesday 2020. चलें जी. ठीक है जी बच्चों. Any questions? Khadija, I hope everything was clear. Saad, I hope everything was clear. And Zainab, I hope everything was clear. ठीक है जी, चलें जी. Thank you बच्चों. See you tomorrow same time. वालेकुम अस्सलाम व रहमतुल्लाह. ठीक है शेख साहब, आप टेंशन आप ना घबरा रहे हैं असल में.